Hey there, Brew Crew. Opie here. Welcome back to my Brew City Garden. So it's the middle of May here in the Brew City, Milwaukee. We're in Zone 5B. And finally, this weekend, the weather is starting to cooperate. We're being blessed with a couple of dry days. So I can go ahead and start sowing in the Bale garden. So finally, we get to come out here. We get to sow some seeds in the Bale garden. I could even put in some transplants this weekend. But the first thing I want to get in are some small seeds. I've got some turnips. I've got some carrots, some parsnips. I'm even going to put in some chard and some peas. Now, there's a couple of tips and tricks that you may want to know for sowing small seeds, such as carrots and beets and the like. And we're going to go over that right now. All right, so it's mid to early spring. The conditioning is complete and the bales have cooled down. And now it's time to get some seeds in these bales. Now, with the smaller seeds, it's a little bit different. We're not gonna plant these like we would do in a traditional garden because we can't just make a row with our hands and cover it back over. That's not how the bales work. Now, straw bales will grow carrots and other small root crops beautifully. I mean, they really grow really well. And if you've got clay or rocky soil, you'll find that the straw bales work way better than you would get in a traditional in-ground garden. Now, the technique that I'm going to show you works for any small seed, really. So it doesn't have to be just root crops. I will plant my chard in the same fashion. Lettuce, all those will be planted in the same fashion. Now, I can't just come along and put seeds across the bale or just drop them across the bale. Well, perhaps I could, but my germination rate would probably be pretty poor, and the birds and squirrels would really like me. They would be in here cleaning these out pretty quickly, I would imagine. Now, if you look at the surface of the bales, there's a lot of holes and crevices and where the straw's opened up, and even the cut part of the straw, seeds could fall in there, which wouldn't be detrimental. But I think by using the technique that I'm going to show you, your germination rates are going to be far better. So what we want to do is spread some sort of soil or growing medium across the top of these bales. Now, you don't need much. We're not using the soil to grow the bulk of the crop or vegetable. We just need it to hold those seeds and to keep the moisture against those seeds. And it also keeps the seeds from falling down into any deep crevices in these bales. So the soil isn't the base for growing our vegetables here. It's just the starter. It's just what's going to help us get these things off to a good start. Now, a couple of things about what type of soil you use. Really anything will work, but just keep in mind that some soil or soilless mixes have different properties. If you were keeping up with the Brew City Gardener channel last year, you know that I used just an all-purpose potting mix to sow my small seeds. And unfortunately, I didn't have very good luck with that. And I figured out why. The potting mix that I was using is it's a peat-based potting mix. And if you know anything about peat, although it works very well, it also has a tendency to dry out very quickly. And so no matter what I tried, I just couldn't get out here enough and wet that peat down enough to keep it from drying out. And small seeds, especially carrots, are very finicky about not drying out. They can be kind of difficult to get started sometimes. And I even put a covering over them just to help keep those from drying out, still with no luck. So I've decided that peat is probably not the best way to go for this application. Later on in the season, I re-sowed my carrots with the compost that I get at the municipal yard. And the compost being, just pure organic material, and it's mostly a leaf mold compost, it holds water extremely well. So I came back through and I used the compost and I re-sowed all my small seeds, and lo and behold, I had an excellent germination rate and ended up with a very nice crop of carrots at the end of the fall. So if you're gonna use a peat base, just make sure you try to keep it covered, or get out to your garden 2 or 3 times a day just to mist it to keep it wet. Otherwise, if I had to make a recommendation, I would say go with a compost type of mix. Now, cocoa coir holds water very well, so cocoa may be a good way to go. I haven't tried that yet, just because the limited availability here in Brew City, and sometimes the expense. Another thing that you could try, if all you have is a peat base, would be to go get a bag of vermiculite and amend that peat base very heavily with vermiculite, which also holds water very, very well. And that might serve you well to get your seeds off to a good start. But today we're just going to use the compost, and I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that. Roll my sleeves up here. Look like a politician. All right. So as I said, we're not using the soil mix as the bulk of the growing medium. We're just going to use it just to get things started. So we really don't need a whole lot, just a little bit across the top, just to fill in all those little crevices. And really we're going to use that soil mix to hold the moisture against the seed. And that's going to help our germination rates exponentially. So as you can see, I'm not going crazy with this stuff. Just enough to cover the tops of the bales and fill in those little crevices. And I'm going to do that on each side of the bales. I'm going to leave the center of the bales open, because I'm going to plant some larger plants in the center, such as peppers, or some other larger, taller type of plants. I usually keep my small root crops and small seeded crops along the edges of the bales, and it just helps me utilize the whole bale, and it just works out really well. So just get a little bit, just like that. Look at that black, beautiful compost. I mean, it's just a gorgeous growing medium. It holds moisture so well. I just love it. All right, clean my hands off here a little bit. Now, like I said, you can use any small seed that you want. I'm starting with carrots, though I will be planting other small seeds here today. I'm just going to show you the carrots because these are probably some of the most common across gardens and the most requested. So I'm just going to just lightly broadcast these in a line along the edge of the bales. I have a tendency to sow my carrots very thick, and I really never had any issues with that. And it kind of helps that, you know, if some of these seeds don't germinate, it's still pretty full. A lot of people like to come back and they say thin your carrots. I usually don't. I mean, unless it's a really thick clump of them. And I still get a really good harvest. So sometimes I think thinning your carrots might be a little overblown, but it's your garden. Do what you want with it, right? I'm a pretty laid back gardener as far as that's concerned. I'm always pressed for time, so the easier something can be, the better. Put the rest of those back there. So I've just got a thin line of carrots sown on each side, just on top of this soil mix. And what I want to do is just come back and cover these up. And when you cover these, I mean, really, you could use as much of this soil mix or compost that you want. Last year, I put it on really heavy. And being compost, that served me two functions. One is, of course, it helps hold the moisture in and against the seed, so my germination was pretty good. And two, with the compost, this will actually leach its nutrients into the bale throughout the growing season, and it'll help feed the main plants that I put in the center of these bales. So it really served two functions, and it worked out great. I wish I had started this way last spring, but you know, that's the cool thing about gardening. You always learn something new every year. And even though this is my 5th year with straw bales, you know, still that's not a lot of time. You know, with the shorter growing seasons here in Milwaukee, you know, 5 seasons, it's really not that much. So I'm always learning something new with these straw bales. But I think using this method with the compost this year, it's gonna increase my not only my germination, but my success, my harvest, by quite a bit. So as you can see, super simple. I've got this whole bale sowed with carrots now, and I'll probably end up with probably 30 or so carrots on each side. And you watch, at the end of this season, they're gonna be very nice. It's gonna be a very nice harvest. And I'm gonna do that with all of these bales. Not just carrots, but other small seeds. I'm gonna have beets and turnips and you name it. Any small seed that would work well on the edge of the bale, they're going in the Brew City Garden this year. All right, guys, so now you see just how easy it is to sow the small seeds across the tops of your bales. So don't be afraid to throw some carrots or some beets or whatever else you might want to grow in your bales. Chances are it's going to do great as long as you remember a few simple but very important tips. Hey, if any of these tips helped you out, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Hey, and if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you here as our newest member of the Brew Crew, and you can follow along with the Brew City Garden throughout the 2019 season and see how everything does and then beyond. Hey, and remember, if you got any questions, feel free to ask them below. I will answer them as soon as I can. And if you want to hear from the rest of the community, you can check out our Facebook group, the Global Straw Bale Gardeners Collective on Facebook. We'd love to have you there as well. All right, guys, you have an awesome day. And until next time, we'll see you.